Okay. All of our go live buttons being pressed as we speak.
We're live. I'm on the other side of being a host for a change. I like this.
I know, very different for you, isn't it, Jason?
Yeah.
Well, what an honor, because you're there in your own studio and you're getting ready to do the same thing in broadcast over on Shrimp Tank. And we're so honored to have you here with us today. So for those that are joining in, this is Mindset to Millions, and this is our interview series where we conduct interviews with thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and experts from all around the world. And we do it live. So we're live on LinkedIn right now. We are live on Instagram right now. And we are live on YouTube right now. So we're only going to grow from there. And we have the great honor and privilege to have Jason Hill in the house. So welcome, 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 Jason. And Jason he's such a phenomenal background as an entrepreneur, but what he's most noted for, or how I know him and Patricia knows him, is the founder of the OWL app and this incredible technology that allows you to do something like this, but then to keep the conversation going from your cell phone and to really deepen and build those relationships. So, hey, Jason.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be on the other end. I'm always hosting shows, right? I run the Shrimp Tank, I run the Owl podcast, and it's nice to be interviewed on the other end for a change, of course.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you here. And also, we work with so many different people that are kind of coming into the thought leadership space, and maybe they were in corporate and now they're trying to transition into doing their own thing and they're having to build a personal brand. And so I know you're a really big connector and also amplifier of other people. And what are you seeing as some of the best ways that people can kind of get the attention on themselves and, and stand out?
I know people probably don't want to hear this, but the old school ways still work, right? Everyone is rushing to go on LinkedIn, to go on Instagram, to go on TikTok and post and post and post. And there's so much saturation on those platforms, and people are getting very frustrated more than ever before, right? With the increase of AI technology, right? That's giving people the ability to create podcasts like this and then create more content than ever before, and quality content too. But what comes with that is massive saturation. And we are seeing that. And I think we're only at the beginning stages of that, right? I think in the next 12 months, when people start picking up on all this AI technology that they get access to for practically free or $10 a month, and it cuts out hours of work in their typical work week, it's going to frustrate more and more people, and they're going to go back to traditional, like meeting for lunch, or grabbing a cup of coffee with somebody, or just making a call to someone, right? And that's the beauty of what we've built with Owl. It's just making a call to someone and creating introductions and creating relationships one phone call at a time. And we all know that when you do things, and you make them, personable, one at a time phone calls or lunches or coffees, it turns into one to many, right? I know Wendy's a big believer in this. She's had so many opportunities to meet with people through a podcast one-on-one. And then it turns out that she gets invited to be on a public stage in front of hundreds of people at a time to get her message across. So I'm still a believer of traditional networking, where it's just to really get to know someone and really ask them about who they are. I think we're all skipping too much of the traditional process, which is to just learn about somebody and listen to them. Going back in history, it's like when we look at good sales professionals, they were always the best listeners, right? They talk 20, 30% of the time, and they listen 70 to 80% of the time. And these days, I think everyone wants to create a shortcut and jump to social media and try to go viral. I call it the social media lottery, right? Because when you look at the real data behind how many people make money, it's pretty much the lottery, and people focus on that 1% of 1% who hit the lottery and think that it's achievable. And I say that is, but it's just, you have to have some type of expectation, no different than the lottery, that very few people win. So that's my 2 cents.
You know what I love about what you said is, first off, it's a breath of fresh air. Okay.
Thank
So let's just start there, that it really is about people connecting with people. And we have to get off of the social media channels. Like we just have to disconnect. Trying to build one of the platforms and do all the commenting and doing all the posting is really exhausting, when you could just take and do some of that, because it's important to be out there and be visible. But then to right away just connect with a couple people and then get offline, like get off of social media. If you can get in person with somebody, there's nothing better than being in
Yeah,
person, like live, to be able to shake someone's hand and be able to look into their eyes and see, other than, we're already on enough Zoom calls and that sort of thing. But
sure.
what I love about the Out app, like, it's, so you're like, okay, where am I going to put it in the space? Because honestly, that's what I said to myself. So where do you put like another way to communicate? And we always have that dead zone time. For me, it's like driving in the car. It's like, okay, I'm driving for 30 minutes. How can I be most efficient with my time? And that's when I love about the app, you can set the timer. You can set it for 30 minutes, 20 minutes. You can set it for an hour if you're going for a drive and you have some time in the background while you're like home doing something, cooking. And then if somebody calls you, because you have your bio like you do on LinkedIn, and then you also have reviews, so that there are people that are actually sharing the testimonial, their experience of working with you, connecting with you. And then you're able to pick and choose. Like, I want to learn more about writing a book,
Yeah,
or I want to learn more about how to launch a podcast. Let me
sure.
call this person and let me do a Q&A without going to Calendly, without looking at the calendar. Because I know I don't like to have my calendar. I'd like to have white space. And so that's really the beauty. Oh, there you are. Okay, there's the app right there. And you can see everybody. So the pictures that you're looking at right now are people that are live right now on the Out app. And all you have to do is click it, and it just immediately connects them.
Yep, right here is an example. Paul Votto is available. He's a podcasting expert, and he's had his own cigar business in the past, and he's $10 for 10 minutes. You click the call button and his phone rings. You don't have his cell phone number. And the beauty of it is you get access to other professionals, and you could collaborate and network with them in real time. So, there's not many other brands that you could do things in real time. Yes, you could connect with someone on LinkedIn and see that there's a green dot on their profile, and yes, that's real time messaging them, but we all know, like, they're not going to message you back in real time typically. They'll wait to get back to those messages, or sometimes they have their computer up and the browser's up, but they're really not on LinkedIn, for example. So the beauty of it is just you could build relationships quicker than ever before with our technology, but we're still bringing in that traditional sense of getting to know someone. You have to be authentic on these calls. You can't just run AI programs to talk to the other individual. You can't put an assistant on there to say, I'm calling on behalf of Wendy, right? And, it's that individual. And you could set your price to any amount you want, $1, $100, $5,000, and really, achieve what you want out of the tool. I find a lot of people sit back and wait for calls. I'm more of a believer to go after your target market and make more outbound calls. You mentioned driving and making calls. I do that all the time. This morning I was driving to work. I saw a CEO available that recently downloaded the app. I went over to her LinkedIn account. I saw she had 10 plus employees. She lived in Connecticut, and I just called her. She's $1 sitting on the platform. She's brand new. Most people are only going to charge $1 because they have a basic account, and they're really just trying to get understanding, what is this technology about? So you get access to people when they're new at $1 before they alter their price. And I believe that's the best part about this tool is, if you're focused on a specific target audience, and maybe it's business owners that have 25 employees or more, just every week look at new people that have downloaded the app. We put them in a new OWL category, and that means in the last 30 days they've joined, and pretty much look at their other social media. And right over on LinkedIn, it shows you how many employees they have. And if anything you did on this platform, that would bring you the max value, is just literally follow those people and spend 10 minutes researching. And then all that happens is they go available, you get a notification, and now you're calling people in your audience that you want to speak to. So you're making it more intentional, very similar to how you would do a filter search on LinkedIn and then connect with the business owners there. But of course, with LinkedIn, they're not going to respond to you most often, right? It's very difficult to get someone on a meeting. Where on Owl, it's a pay to play model, so you just pay $1 or so, right? And you get access. So I look at it as a phenomenal tool when used right. And you are correct. You could take inbound calls and set your rate at a certain level that, it eliminates just the talkers who are calling you just to chat, right? Versus someone who's paying $10 for 10 minutes, who's really saying, I looked at this person's profile. I can't wait to get on a call with them and see if we can collaborate. Maybe meet for coffee, maybe for lunch, or jump on Zoom. And that's the point of Al. I think too often people jump on there and, there's fear. It's like, oh, I'm calling this individual. I don't know them. But once you get a couple calls under your belt, you realize like the people available want these calls, and it's very friendly because it self-polices itself. There's reviews, right? So I could review you after call, Wendy. You could review me. So everyone's held accountable, where we don't see as much accountability on social media today. It's actually a mess, right? There's laws being put in place right now. A law just passed recently about like fake reviews and fake following. But you think about it, like social media right now is a mess. Like I could just jam 5,000 messages on LinkedIn today, right? And get maybe 100 meetings next week and just straight solicit every single person and get away with it. No one's gonna, tell the other users what I did, right? Or females, taking meetings and then all of a sudden, like they realize, the person's intentions is wrong and they're trying to get that person on a date, right? Like it runs wild on Instagram. So I just look at it as like no accountability, right, on these platforms. And Owl was built where the accountability is front and center, and it's hard to really scam on our platform or scam because it's human voices and there's reviews.
Well, what I like is that the intention is already set.
Yeah.
So when you go on to say LinkedIn and you're trying to get somebody from the comment section of your post over to a message onto the phone, for a lot of people, that's kind of intimidating. How do I approach people? Are they even want to be approached? And all of that stuff. And so getting onto Owl, everyone's already set the intention. They've already raised their hand and said, I want to have a conversation. I want to communicate with people. And it's a great way for somebody to start putting in the reps.
Yes.
That's what I loved about Clubhouse, right? Is I went in there and spoke for 2 years, probably over 200 hours on my topic. I answered every question possible. And now I don't feel like I really have to prepare if I'm going to be on a panel talking about my expertise, because I've fine-tuned it over time. And so with Owl, it's great because people can go in there and it's kind of a warm conversation. They don't have to feel like they have to go in there and have some kind of pitch. It's just, two people talking, and you can just see where it goes. It could go nowhere, but at least you've gotten to practice your messaging. You've got to practice reaching out, right? And I think that's, we see it all the time is we get those messages on LinkedIn. And, they're asking you can we come in and train your office staff? And you're like, I've got one person, right? Or, it's some generic cut and paste, or it's a bot or somebody approaching you. And so a lot of times you just ignore even the good reach outs because you don't know they're any good, right? You don't even know if that person is wanting to talk to you really. And with this, you literally are picking somebody to talk to, and you're picking to pick up the phone and, choosing to be, have a conversation. And so that's what I like about it.
It's like a filter. Like you don't have to set up a 30-minute call, get on Zoom, have to have hair and makeup. You could actually filter and then know, okay, now we want to, this is a connection. It's quick. It's easy. You don't have to really sit down and really put everybody into your calendar and sacrifice all your valuable time for meetings that you really don't know where they're going to go. And it's a long process if you're using social media. It works, but it takes a long time. And pretty instantly when you connect with somebody on the phone, if that's a check, for you, or a great person, but not really a check, but maybe you can refer somebody. So like what even made you do this? Like where was this born from inside of you?
Yeah, great question. I want to piggyback Patricia's comments on LinkedIn with the messaging box before I get to that, because it's extremely important. We did a lot of surveys with other users on Owl, like what were they doing with all their inbound messages on LinkedIn. And with the rise of AI, right, everyone's getting messages to their inbox. There's more comments on posts, and it's only going to get worse. And this is happening on email automation. It's happening on Instagram now. And all of a sudden, like, no one has programs in place what to do with all these inbound messages, right? You think about it, like some people send them to their website and then there's a funnel there, right? But 9 out of 10 people don't have a system. They use their intuition to read the message, and if it's a cut and paste, they skip over it. But the truth is that cut and paste could be, you know, a good individual that's just doing a test, you know, with an AI software tool, right? So I think it's important to recognize that you could leverage Owl by sending them a message back that's cut and paste and saying, happy to connect with you. I do all my introduction calls through the Owl app. It helps me filter all the spam messages I receive. Here's my referral code. You'll get $10 when you download Owl. You call me for free with that $10. I'm available every Tuesday from 10 to 11 on a first come basis. What that does is it literally filters all these messages, and you take about 15, 20 minutes a week to just send these messages to all these people that you're not sure about, the ones you're not going to give your cell phone, your email out to. And that's uncomfortable today. You're giving your information out, and then all of a sudden you're getting put on a newsletter that you didn't ask to be put on, or you're getting text messages. So I think that there's a lot of value in our tool just for that alone, where you utilize it to funnel the right people to have conversations with you, because they really care about you. They will go that direction and download Owl, and they find value in speaking with you. They'll go call you during that time frame, or they'll at least start a message, you know, back and forth with you, and you'll see it's a real person on the other end, not just, you know, a robot, right? So I think there's so much value there. And then the boundaries you picked up on, Patricia, is that every call on Owl starts with 10 minutes. So when you jump on a Zoom, Wendy, and it starts, and all of a sudden you're like, how did I just, you know, have a 1 hour meeting? Like, I didn't really want to do that. You know, you couldn't get them off the Zoom. It just kept going. With Owl, it's a 10-minute counter. They've paid to chat with you. And the best part about it, if they don't hit add more time, tough luck. Call cuts at 10 minutes, right? So it's beautiful because the expert also gets a request if they want to extend the time with you. And additionally there, if you have another meeting or you're just not feeling it, you just nicely say, sorry, I have another meeting coming up, can't continue. So the beauty of Owl is it does cut it. So introverts absolutely love that feature, because they always feel uncomfortable on Zooms. And we've gotten a lot of feedback from introverts. They're like, this is the best thing, 10-minute conversations. And, you know, if I'm having a good experience, yes, I could last the conversation, go an hour, 2 hours, whatever it might be, but that's part of the beauty. So to answer your question, Wendy, all of that kind of, you know, was some of the reasoning why I built Owl, right? I saw the writing on the wall, what was happening with automation back in 2020 when COVID hit. And I started to see the rise of solo entrepreneurs, right? When you look in 2020, 2021, when COVID hit, everyone, you know, started working remotely, but everyone started a side hustle, right? Everyone could have an Instagram account, a TikTok account, and play the social media lottery, right? And everyone's saying, well, I might as well do it, right? Why not? You know, I have my 9 to 5, you know, nothing says I can't have a social media account. Yes, I have to be careful if I have a job, don't want to get fired. But in general, I just saw the writing on the wall with my podcast, The Shrimp Tank, actually going back to that. I was interviewing entrepreneurs, and I just saw like there was no tool out there that created this safe environment for networking and collaborating, right? It all happened in person. It was all in-person meetings, but in-person meetings, you know, networking events ended. So I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a tool to just collaborate one-on-one? And of course, my intuition was right, because that idea came before I downloaded Clubhouse. And when Clubhouse came out January 2021, or at least when I downloaded it, that was like their big months were January through April that year, where they hit mainstream with millions of users. I just started building Owl. So my intuition was 100% spot on. I was freaking out because I thought they had built what I was already in contract to build. But then I realized, oh my God, this is a home run. They're going after group audio. I'm going after one-on-one conversations. And we could pull people from Clubhouse, you know, who already like, you know, social audio in a group space and do a one-on-one. Of course, my fear was, what if they create a one-on-one, which they did, but it wasn't that powerful because it had no money tied to it. And adding money internationally is very complex, and I knew that. So they never went the direction of really messing around with calling different people with money. There's a lot of regulations if you're calling someone in a different country, and then scams could occur. You know, and thankfully I know some of this stuff because I'm a financial advisor. So I understood a lot of the money side of things. So I feel very confident, keep going and pouring my life savings into building this technology. And I'm really proud of the community we have, right? We're not the largest community out there, but we've grown slow and steady. And I think it's just a matter of when we have our aha moment to impact millions of people.
So where can people find you? You know, where can people find the app? What do they need to do to take action? Because I'm sure there's going to be several people who watch this that are trying to find it and want to play around and get started.
Yes. So I'm gonna write it down so no one makes any typo errors. So it's OWWLL, right? Two W's because L's are wise, two L's because you're going to love it. And you go right to the App Store or the Google Play Store and download it. Of course, you go to our website and then there's links there as well. And then, you know, after you download it, you create a profile, and we just launched 2.0, which means everyone's an expert right out of the gate on Owl. So you could go in, have a full profile, you could accept calls at $1 to try it out, make calls at any rate, put deposits in via credit card, and put in the show notes your referral code, and they'll get $10 upon downloading it. So then they can do all this for free. They can have 10 conversations at $1, just trying it out and build opportunities and relationships right off the bat for free. And then if they like it, they get upgrade to a premium account. A premium account puts them in more categories. It gives them the ability to change their price to any rate they would like. And that's for the users who see it as a tool that they're going to use it on a regular basis. And we give the money back to everyone. So it's $10 a month, but I think we're on the few platforms that says, you know, it's not about that. We're just giving you the $10 back as a credit to make calls. So now, you know, if you're going to take Owl seriously, it's really free, because who's not going to spend $10 on calling people? That's one call to one person at $10, or 10 calls at $1, of course. So, you know, there's not many platforms that give you back the money as a credit, which we looked at as like, that's the whole point. We're giving it back to you, so then you make calls. Because too often, if you give a platform, we recognize, and this is me going back to my early days as a founder, I thought, oh, like people will recognize, like, just call people. There's so much value there. They're available. But people gamify systems. They'll always fight for the lowest cost lead, lowest cost product, and they don't value things if they're not paying for things. We know that, you know, through multiple surveys and stats. And what we realized that, you know, when we add $10 to your account, you know, then all of a sudden, if it's going to expire and you don't use it, you start using it, and it puts you into the mindset that calling others is very acceptable on Owl. Because originally when we launched, everyone said, "Look, your app's amazing, but no one's calling me." But then I did a survey, like, no one's putting deposits to call them. So by adding this premium account feature, it really pushed more people to get used to having more of a balance. Take 10 calls, make 10 calls.
It's great. Your pricing the way it is, so it really prevents anybody. It's just a tire kicker because they have to have a small investment going in.
Yes.
It's fantastic. And I just want to close on this. There are a lot of people as entrepreneurs, solopreneurs that are home alone and just really need the connection, somebody to run ideas by, somebody to bring, you know, all the things. So it can be used multiple ways. So it is a community. It is a very connected community, very active on LinkedIn. And Jason does live events, all sorts of amazing things, giving back in the community. We're really honored to have you on with us. We will have all the links on all the social media platforms. And we know you now have your podcast where it's live in the studio, and you're also on the app. So you do both. So you have a live podcast, and you also have the Owl app, and you're doing it all at the same time. So we can connect all of these platforms together. So thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, and I'll come back in the future. And last thing, your group is on Owl. So people can go and edit their profile. After they have their expertise, right below that is groups. So they can put themselves in your group. And then, you know, the beauty of Owl as we expand is your group will be showcased on the homepage of Owl, at certain times of the week. And then your community, you could even email blast, say, hey, we're all going to go on Owl Thursday from 10 to 1. Let's all call each other back and forth. But then our community is going to call your community, and they'll get opportunities that come in because they'll understand that your community is about book authors, and speakers, and a lot of people out there want to connect with authors and speakers and get them on their podcast shows or get them, at events. So I just look at it as like it's a win-win because we're collaborating together. So that's my last thing. Thank you
That's what
for
it's all
having
about.
me.
Okay.
Take care. Bye,
Thank you,
guys.
Jason. Well, Patricia, that was great having Jason on today. I mean, wow, he's really the wow factor. The fact that he has 2 live podcasts, he's a financial analyst, he founded this incredible app and really has built a powerful community. And so it's like so great to have him on. It's so fantastic to have our next guest. So if we are ready, I am going to bring.
Hi, Dr. Maya.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Great to have you on today. Thank you so much for being here. It's such an honor. And we met actually at an event that Jason had his live podcast set up just a few weeks ago, which is the $1 Million Weekend. And you were on the panel. And you were on a panel that was talking about health, holistic health, well-being, vitality, all these things. And your story and what you shared that day, like really struck a chord with me. I shared it with Patricia, saying this is somebody that we so resonate with. And so it's really fantastic. This is how it works, right? This is how collaboration, connection works, and how to be able to take live events, then social media platforms, and then deepen the relationship and have real people connecting and being able to share their passion. So you do so many things as a naturopathic doctor, involved in also, you specialize in fertility and autoimmune. I know a lot of people have questions about that. And so anything else you want to add on to that, but it's such an honor to have you here with us today.
Yes, it's so great to be here. I just want to give a little background. So I am a naturopathic doctor, which is a 4-year medical degree. A lot of people don't know that, with a specialization in using holistic modalities. So that's nutrition, botanical medicine, homeopathy, acupuncture, chiropractic, hydrotherapy, lifestyle, meditation. So all of it together. And in 23 states, we have licensure to do primary care. So as a physician, you could come to me as your first stop primary care doctor. And in 23 states in the US, people have access to that. And unfortunately, here in Florida, they don't. So I wanted to do whatever I could to help people access that type of care. And so in 2018, I gutted 3,000 square feet to create a birth center and give women options that they didn't have in the hospital and have water birth. And we did that for 4 years. And then another area where I saw lack of access was homeopathy, which has the ability to help and cure people with autoimmune disease. So I also focus on that and love taking patients in that area. And then my main business right now is the fertility, our center called Bliss Fertility Center. And again, there are very few options for holistic care in fertility. So that is something that we offer here with an MD. I'm an ND, so MD-ND team, and we do all our care and intakes together. So that's really fun, and it makes naturopathic medicine accessible.
So I was so excited about you coming on here because, I went through a health journey for the last 18 years since my youngest was born. And I was tossed from one doctor to the next, and it would take months to get in. Then you'd wait in the waiting room for like an hour. And then they gave you 10 minutes, and then they would, send you to a bunch of tests, and then you end up with a different doctor. And then I even went through the Mayo Clinic system where it was 3 days of, 10-minute doctors and tests. with really no resolution because nobody was talking to each other. And it wasn't until I went to a holistic practice, and that person, my first encounter with them was a 3.5 hour interview from the time I was in my mom's womb until today. And so I would love it if you would explain a little bit, because people are really confused about what is this, and is this just something I do, like if I'm into like woo-woo stuff or whatever. And when do I go to one of these doctors and why is it different? So what is the process? Like if somebody comes to you, they're a brand new patient, what does that process look like with you?
That's a really good question. And I love your example. So I think the first step is always getting a correct diagnosis, right? Figuring out what is going on with you and having that explained to you in terms that you can understand so that you can understand what the plan is from here. And that's what you didn't get. And you can never do that in 10 minutes. It is time that you need. So at the fertility center, we spend 2 hours with a patient, both Dr. Tom and I, and we do a whole health history. Health history is so important. It is passed over too often, but in medical school, you're always taught that 90% of your diagnosis is from health history. And so in our health history, we first of all look at both partners because that's so important. That is also missed at fertility clinics. But it's not only the medical history, family history, it's also the social history. It's also the environmental medicine history, stressors in your life, nutritional history, and all of those interplay and of course affect fertility and other diseases. So we take that into account. Then we do blood work in office, and we go way beyond what the regular IVF clinics do as far as blood work, because we're looking at the whole person. The whole person needs to be healthy to get pregnant, not just the ovaries, not just the estrogen and the progesterone. So, and Dr. Tum, the OB who works with me, draws the blood here in the office. And we do that's the kind of care. It's just because every other office sends out for blood work because it costs too much to stock the supplies and do the work for what you get out of it. But I want the convenience for our patients. And after that, they come back and I present a 20-page report on all our findings and the plan moving forward. So this is a departure from what we usually know as transactional care, where you go to see your doctor, they spend a few minutes with you, tell you a few things, and then you're going back in 2-3 weeks, but you have no idea what the plan or the next steps are. And you just keep rolling along until, and it usually doesn't end up transpiring in very much. So yeah, we call that the discovery process, that 2-hour initial intake. Then we take time to mull it over, which is something we learned in naturopathic school, because it takes time to figure it all out. And so Dr. Tum and I sit down together, mull it all over, and then we present our findings to you and give the patient time to ask all the questions. And of course, we have a plan, but we need to fit it to their needs and their wants and their trajectory as well.
That's so powerful. I mean, it's so empowering to arm the patient with information, is to give that to them, because you can't make decisions as a patient when you don't even know what's going on, right?
100%, because I talk to so many people that are like trying to take notes with their doctor or like asking if they record what the doctor says, and then they have to leave and they Google. And plus, if they just got a diagnosis or they got some news, they're all of a sudden they're in fear, fight or flight. So then any information that comes to them from a medical doctor who's got 15 minutes for someone who worked in the pharmaceutical industry for 25 years, that's what I saw firsthand in all different disease states, because that's what I specialized in, and so I used to really feel for the patients. And working on the drug sides of things, like there was so much information that we went through. How can a doctor just go through with the patient 15 minutes, get the information to diagnosis, just barely enough time to write out the scripts, and then everybody's on their own. And people are very overwhelmed from it. And then even worse, they go home and they Google, and then they start getting so much information. Now they have information overload, and then their friends and family start jumping in and giving their opinion, what their, experience has been. And then it's piecemeal. Then you got people trying to do too much or do the wrong thing, or just following this expert that they listen to do something on Instagram. So it's really overwhelming. So to feel like you have a medical provider that is your partner, that you can commit, that you feel safe, that no question is a stupid question,
Right.
that you can actually ask and be, respected, and the information shared, that there's trust. And there's not a lot of that. And from someone who left the pharmaceutical industry, from walking in to clinics and seeing the rooms, you couldn't even sit down in half the waiting rooms. And it really shouldn't be that way. And we know that.
Mhm.
So you look at all sides of things. So can you talk to that? I know that you're on a mission, that it's it's your purpose to go out there and let people know that they have choice and that they have options. And do you think that has something to do with this explosion of autoimmune that just covers like so much of everything?
Absolutely. So I want to go back to what you said. This respect and time and attention that doctors need to be spending with their patients empowers you. Patricia used the word empowers. We need to empower. We can heal from within. That is a powerful, powerful tool. So yes, not only is it attention, respect, these people, it's a normal way to treat someone. It will help their healing. It is so important to help their healing. There's studies to show that if they know what a supplement is doing for them, it's going to work better. And so people are looking for their options, and it is such a wonderful thing that they are looking for their all their options and reading up. And so many people are making great impact in their health with nutrition. I do believe the foundation of health is nutrition. It is something we are taught in naturopathic school, and medical education, MD education, doesn't require a single course of nutrition to graduate medical school. So it with all the DIY that's going on, I see the greatest results with the nutrition, and so happy to see that. With autoimmune, what we see is that there is usually, most often, a stressor, either one major stressor that triggers the immune system to go out of balance, or several piled up upon someone's immune system. And it's like a forest fire taking off, and it leads to other autoimmune conditions. And the problem is, even though it's usually caused by a stressor, when you remove all the stressors from your life, that forest fire has already started. You can't stop. You can stop working. You can meditate all day long. You can eat right. That forest fire has already started. And so the medicine, having experience with extensive experience with botanical medicine and nutrition and acupuncture and homeopathy, the medicine that I found most effective for that is homeopathy, and it takes into account the entire person, the mental, emotional aspect, as well as the physical aspects. I'll have to say autoimmune, for autoimmune, the nutritional aspect is very important as well. I have seen people reverse autoimmune by elimination diets, so removing food allergies from their diet. And this is not something that is recommended by your doctor when you go in for autoimmune. It's only immune suppressants or that are suggested, and it's claimed that there's no cure for it. But I have seen many people cure their autoimmune with nutrition. But if they can't, like for instance, I had a woman last week with 3 autoimmune conditions. She went on the AIP diet, so autoimmune diet, and her symptoms got 50% better. But she's maxed out on what she can do with diet, but that's fantastic. you know? And so now she's coming to me and we're going to resolve the rest of it.
Well, you know, I went on that diet. So
Oh.
I'm 52 and at like my late 40s, I all of a sudden was allergic to everything. I mean, like gluten and nuts and I mean, you name it, dairy, anything I liked. I was all, and I never had an allergy in my life. And so the solution just by the regular physicians was then you just don't eat that. Right. It was more and more things were coming up that I couldn't be outside or I had a migraine, you know, all these things. And when I started seeing this other group that looked at my history and everything else, and they started me on that protocol, and the way they explained it, which I thought was great, was I said, imagine like a bowl, like your stomach, your gut is like a bowl. And once it gets to the top, your immune system keeps the level down. But once it overflows, that's when all these things start going wrong in your system. And so that's what happened with changing the diet. It brought it down enough. Like I can have gluten, but if I start eating it all the time, then I have a problem. But I thought it was interesting that you mentioned DIY. And so traditional medicine has a real opinion about this because, you know, I used to joke to my friends, they would call me the Google MD. And I would text them, I'm like, the Google MD is open for business, you know, throw your ailments at me and I'll look it up. And my traditional doctors didn't like it. And I actually self-diagnosed catamenial pneumothorax for myself because of tracking and Googling. So what is your opinion about, you know, your patients going out and arming themselves with information because there's so much information out there available now?
Well, I sympathize with them because they are not getting proper diagnosis with their doctor, no matter how much they pay for insurance and how good a plan they have. So they have no choice. And that I think is the real crime going on right now. Yeah. And people are intuitive too. You know, one of the questions I ask in the questionnaire on my Bliss Fertility Center website when they apply is, what do you think the issue is? You know, what does your gut say the issue is? We know you're coming to us for answers, but what do you think? Because people know their bodies, and we don't. And it's a clue for me. Yep. Well, that connects with this, that, and the other, because it is a constellation of symptoms and clues that we have to look at in order to figure out what's going on. So I don't blame people for doing that. I wish that the doctors were everyone was spending more time with people. People need the time.
I have two questions for
Sure.
you. So first, do you take clients online? We know you're here in South Florida. Mm-hmm. So for those that are watching on all the different social media platforms, you are in West Palm Beach.
Yes.
And do you also consult and work with clients wherever they are? So medicine or something of that sort.
So for the homeopathic medicine, we can do it online. It's a 4-hour consult because it's comprehensive. And then follow-ups are regular. And I usually, even if people are local, do that by phone anyways. For the fertility business, we would need one initial discovery intake here so that we can see the person and do the physical exam and all of that. And then from there, we could do it online after that point.
Well, it's such an honor to have you on with us today. We'd love to have you back again.
I would love to.
At live events as well. So thank you so very much, Dr. Maya.
My pleasure. Have a wonderful day.
For those who are watching, we'll have all the links to connect also to Dr. Maya's website and all her social media channels. That was just fantastic, wasn't it?
She's amazing. Amazing. Yeah.
I wish I would have had someone like that as my, actually, well, not that I need a fertility doctor, but just as a doctor, like a naturopath doctor, just so fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
So encouraging. Well, we have our next guest coming up. I'm going to bring Derrick up on the stage.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Derrick.
Wow, you got a new setup.
I did, yes, just a little bit.
A new microphone and the whole thing.
Yeah.
Looks fancy.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, you've been up to big things. You just had your big signature workshop. Today, we're going to talk about storytelling, how important that is, and whether you are a speaker or just like for everybody to like really even know what their stories are and how to be able to insert snippets of their story as part of communication or using it for social media, just so that they can connect or build a following. People get to know them and not just their products and services. So how did you get involved in that?
Well, I've always been passionate about stories, and I had no expectation or no desire for a long time to become an entrepreneur. I was working for different nonprofits over the years, different organizations. And it wasn't until I was in my master's program years ago that I started developing different things that I said, maybe this is bigger than the role I have currently. And it's funny because I'm sure we'll talk about this book that you guys are working on later, but as I've gone through my life and reflected, I've seen that the entrepreneurial spirit was there subtly emerging over time. And so being able to take the things that we're passionate about and being able to find ways to give that to others, right? And to be able to create something that is an experience, something that is unique, that is connected with who you are, that is a reflection of what you've been called to do, why you're here. And so once I realized with stories that we can create spaces where people can wrestle through, well, what is my story? What's the story that I'm telling myself? What's the story I'm telling others? How do I learn the skills to more effectively communicate that story? And even though that's been a part of my life in different ways, both personally and in what I've been involved in different jobs and career-wise, being able to do that now through a business has just been the most fulfilling thing.
Well, it's so amazing. And also, I've worked with a lot of type A business people in the past to write their book, and they really want to stay to the facts and their frameworks and teaching and things. And, when we talk about story, a lot of them are saying, they'll say, well, nobody really cares about my story, or they're like, I don't want to look weak or vulnerable.
Yeah.
And what kind of stories do you feel like an entrepreneur, business person, what kind of stories do they need to have in their toolbox to pull out and use for different situations?
Oh, that's a great question, Patricia. So I'll give a few that I can think of right off the top here. So one that I really like is just stealing from Joseph Campbell here for a moment, but it's like your call to adventure, right? So what is that moment when you started to realize that you had something to offer the world? And that could be whether you first recognized that you had that gift or a passion for this product or this idea, or it could be your calling into being an entrepreneur, right? Which kind of ties in with another story, which is what I like to call your leap of faith. So entrepreneurship, I think we all can agree, is a leap of faith, right? You're putting yourself out there, you're investing time, money, energy into creating something that you're hoping people are going to be interested in something that you're crossing your fingers and praying that, oh my gosh, can I just make my first sale, right? And so that leap of faith is what we're doing. Anytime we're opening up that LLC, we're opening up that business bank account, applying for that credit card, it's all a leap of faith. And it's that recognition that you're never going to be fully ready. You just at some point have to go for it, right? So being able to share those stories of how we get interested and how we get initiating this journey of an entrepreneur. But another one I think as well that's really significant is your turning point. So we have these turning point moments in our lives where we go from one chapter to another. We transition into something. Our turning point could be moving towards some greater awareness of who we are or an awakening to what's possible in life. And so a turning point in terms of if you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, is what are those moments when you maybe were trying something a certain way for a while and you recognized, oh my gosh, this isn't working. Where do I need to take this? What do I need to implement? And maybe there's a mentor that gives you a piece of wisdom that you take that and you begin to implement that in your business, or a new tool you discover, or a new workshop or program that you begin offering. But those turning point moments when you go from here and you go to the next level. But I think the most important one of all is your why.
Yep.
And you guys call this, like your signature story, right? Where we really dive into the why of why do I do this? And I think this is one of the biggest things I see in networking groups is I listen to people explain their product and explain, what they're do. But, maybe it's just because I'm more of like a creative, but I'm just always wondering like, oh man, how'd you get into this? Like, why are you so passionate about this? And I think when I think about the people that I work with and do business with, when I have a better sense of their why, it helps me feel more connected with them. And I'm more inclined to work with them because I feel like I don't just understand their product or what they do, but I understand something about who they are.
It's so true, right? Because like we make buying decisions based on emotion, and we have to feel some sort of connection.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of noise out there, and you're starting to see that business owners are starting to embrace their story. We saw it like Tom's shoes, like, and then we can get around like, oh, I just want a pair of those shoes because of the mission. It's so much deeper and beyond. So we can feel that we're connected to the collective. So let's talk about sharing your story. So you're talking about sharing your story out, whether you're on stage as an entrepreneur in your business messaging, but also now the power of sharing your story in a book, in book form. And so we're so honored that you are in our next book that is launching next year. Woohoo! So talk a little bit about that difference and what that experience has been for you, because you just finished writing your chapter. You actually sent that message this week. And to talk about, because you live and breathe sharing your story. So what did you feel was something that set it apart when you were actually able to write about it?
So I've written my story for a lot in terms of speaking, and I like doing writing just for fun. I'm that weird, like 1% of the population that just enjoys writing. Yeah, I know, Patricia. We're going at that. But the interesting thing is that this is going to be the first time that I've ever written it down, like in a book, in something that's going to really be out there and be published. And I think the interesting thing about this process is like, oh shoot, there's no like, wait, I want to go back and change that like a year from now, right? And so I constantly am in a state, and I encourage other people to be in the state as well, of just constantly like reevaluating the story, right? Because when different seasons and chapters of our life emerge, we can go back and have greater hindsight and greater perspective in things. And so it's hard to really fully understand a story when you're in the middle of it. But when you have some time and distance away from it, you're able to have more hindsight, right? So in this book, you guys are writing, The Unleashed Entrepreneur. One of the things that I really wanted to hone in on was tracing that thread of entrepreneurial, the entrepreneurial spirit, I like to call it, tracing that through my life. And that's something that I've kind of been doing in small ways, but trying to do that on a larger scale with this book. And everything that I teach clients, I always say this is stuff that I have to do myself, right? This is a process I try to take myself to. And the funny thing is that people will always say when they're working with me, like, man, your chapter, your thing, your stuff must be like amazing all the time, right? And I'm like, well, I need people too, because even I can get so stuck and caught in like a certain way of maybe seeing my story or understanding it. I need another person that I can bounce ideas off, right? And so like, whether it's my wife, whether it's friends, whether it's, Wendy, Patricia, you guys, we need people in our lives to really practice telling our story, to practice, especially people who know us really well, people who can really speak into, okay, maybe you're missing something, right? And that's one thing even my wife was saying in this chapter was like, there's something not quite coming through here about you. And so she was very good just about taking my own stuff and using it against me in the best way possible, of course. But yeah, so I think that it's just so important when we're learning to tell our story in something that's going to be recorded and something that's going to be captured. Don't try to go it alone. Really find people you trust, people who have the tools and the wisdom, and be able to just bounce ideas off and really see where your story's at and how to deepen it, how to make it even better.
Well, that's really the point of the story, right? There's a social interaction that takes place there. And, you know, I was talking to our writers group yesterday and talking about, I had to go out, you know, I've written and published 19 books, but I had to go out and hire some guy. And I literally told him, I have friends and family that will tell me I'm amazing. Like, I want you to tell me what's missing.
Mhm.
And so having somebody who never heard my story read it and look for gaps,
Mhm.
but then also to your point, is showing it to people who actually know you or know about that story and say, wait a second, because we don't often know what about our story is sticky. We don't have that
Mhm.
perspective. We think it's boring. We lived it. We've told it 100 times.
Mhm.
And somebody else is like, wait, you didn't tell that one part, right?
Mhm.
And so we leave it out. And so that's why it's so great that there's people like you that, you know, that people can go to and you can brainstorm and help pull that story from them, but also show them how to craft stories for different situations. Cause we all
Mhm.
have a lot of stories.
Yes.
Lee and I are on our 5th time telling our story, right? And it's a different story every time.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate you being here today. And it's such an honor to have you as part of our community and to collaborate with you and everything. And we're so excited about this book coming out. So thank you so much for joining us today, Derrick.
Yes. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Patricia.
You are so awesome. All right, we're going to have all of Derrick's contact information, his website, his podcast, and all the
Mhm.
amazing things that you're up to. All right, Derrick, thank you so very much. So
Thank
awesome.
you, Wendy. Thank you, Patricia, for having me.
Thank you.